Hello, everyone. It's Thursday, June 20th, and it's time for another TXA market update. It's been a while since I did an update. I finally got my grandma moved into a facility that was very rough, but we are moving forward. Bitcoin hasn't really done anything, though. I've been watching it as I constantly do, and it's been mostly sideways. We did break down a little bit, but when we checked in last after we were kind of breaking down up here, pretty much all we did was push slightly lower and sideways. So we're still stuck in this bit of resistance here that we haven't really broken out of. And until we break out of that resistance, we can't continue onward with either the local move push up here out of this potential pattern, or even the higher one from lower, doing the larger flag pattern. So there was a bit of a potential flag pattern inside here that's broken down a little bit more. So it looks a little bit less like a potential flag pattern on the inside. Let me get this one out of the way here, because it would need to kind of line up there, and it doesn't really. So almost starting to look more like a wedge getting stuck down here. Like so many of the alts last time we looked were going into those wedges and we're stuck in them. I suspect with Bitcoin slipping a little bit, we'll see some alts have also given up some ground. They'll probably have slipped lower. I don't know if they've gone all the way to their bear market low support points. I hope they haven't. There's a good chance some of our trades have stopped out, so we're going to check in with those in a minute. Let's see how ETH is doing. So ETH sideways. ETH didn't even have that slightly lower push. I mean, it did technically wick lower, but it's sideways from where it was all the way back on Tuesday the 11th. Here we are on the 20th, still there. So Bitcoin back on Tuesday the 11th was a bit higher. So Bitcoin's actually given up some ground, which should mean ETH Bitcoin has gained from the 11th, and it has. So here it was back on the 11th. It's bounced a little bit. So ETH gaining a little bit of relative strength. Now we can look at dominance and see, has Bitcoin given up its strength? So from the 11th, dominance was here. Bitcoin's given up just a little bit. Considering Bitcoin's pulled back, that's expected. So alts probably have pulled back the same or less than Bitcoin for the most part, but I bet some acute alts have pulled back quite a bit. This is 3.5% over a course of a week. So we probably have some alts that have done 10, 20%. I know I've seen some double digits on Coinbase on some of the alts as I've been watching the past week. So we'll check in with some of that. Here's your CME futures, nothing to speak of, no gaps, no nothing. The DXY continues to push up. That's really putting stress on a struggling Bitcoin. To have that DXY strengthening, that should be causing some strain on the markets. Although it's interesting, the Dow Jones bouncing back up today with the DXY. That's what you should expect to see, a little bit of pullback. Although the S&P was at an all-time high, so a pullback not unexpected there. Hood straight red for the past week after pushing up, closing that gap there. Coin, a little bit of red, stuck back in that uptrend channel, possibly red ahead there. Nvidia, finally a red candle. That is a pretty strong bearish engulfing candle. So the previous day's green candle completely engulfed top to bottom. And if this closes in the red and does a red candle tomorrow and the day after, that will confirm a possible reversal going lower in the books there. So here we go. Block finally made it back close to this point. Can they put in a better shoulder here than what they were potentially doing there? Let's see. And you also can see a bit of this wedge that you're seeing across the markets there. There's that wedge that we see all over the alt charts. The question now we really have to ask ourselves, will these wedges, and you could argue that that's kind of what ETH is in now here, is more of a wedge than anything else. It's a bit sloppy, but will these wedges, pullbacks, cool-off periods, will they result in a break up, or will they break down and head lower? Both options possible and on the table. So let's take a look. Well, before we go into our alts, let's look at a couple of news pieces that I found out there. So Dogecoin traders appear to short token as meme coin frenzy eases. We can check in on that. Let's see. Doggy. Yeah, there's a bit of a drop, a bit of a push. To me, that just looks like you're cleaning up this break. You haven't made it all the way down to that previous resistance point that should be support if you break down that far. So now our support's starting to look a little bit more sloped. And when you do that and you take that into account, there's your potential wedge pattern or triangle pattern, if you will. And the question becomes, can we turn this into a new rally? Will this be the pullback point in the potential rally to come? I mean, that's pretty much on the line for what you see there. If that's the third touch and we grind sideways and we don't go lower, that is a potential solid pullback off the 50. The next high would be the 618. And for Doge at least, you got almost 100% there. Now, where it is now, you can't really hide. You can 20% behind the 236, but you need some confirmation. And chances are some of our trades got stopped out. We'll come back to that in just a minute. We'll talk about what we might want to do. But you can see some red in Doge. There was a selling frenzy, they said, so to speak. So definitely some red on the meme coins. You can see there's some double-digit reds across. Pepe was down 7, Shiba Inu 14%, Doge 12%, Dog with Hat 17%. So definitely some red, but all those numbers sound like reasonable pullbacks even in a bullish market. None of that is 50%, 70%. Overall, we can check how much they've pulled back on Doge there since the peak. 45, 50%. So nothing earth-shattering. We're not in the 80s, the 90s percents of a bear market top to bottom. We're in more of a 40, 50% of an uncertain pullback that could turn down versus a 30% bullish pullback. Now you have to consider we got a little sloppy. So 30, 40% there. We're not in breakdown territory yet, but we're at do or die moments. We are at the moment where we have to prove it. If Bitcoin starts to break down here, we'd be slipping into this under area before we lose the 2.6 and it gets real dicey across the entire market. So we're going to have to kind of play it safe. Any of our stop outs, we probably just want to get out of the way, reevaluate kind of what's going on and look at structure. For support levels, because really right now we should be checking our supports. They're going to be tested if Bitcoin continues any lower, if they haven't been already. Stablecoin issuers now the 18th largest holder of US debt. Stablecoin issuers are fast emerging as a significant source of demand for US Treasury notes. Here's a fun tinfoil hat for you. What if the US defaults on debt after stablecoins become the largest holder? That's a bit of a tinfoil reach there, but that's an interesting thought, a projection. It's interesting to think that if the US was to somehow default on its debt, God forbid some crazy event, crypto would be negatively impacted. Isn't that funny? So now the relationship lines are blurring even more. Tether is the world's leading dollar-pegged cryptocurrency by market value with 91 billion in treasuries, and Circle, the issuer USDC, holds 29 billion of US short-dated debt. So very, very interesting to see. You can see Japan holds the most. There's China, UK, and then it goes down from there. And here's stablecoins holding more than South Korea, Germany, or Bermuda. So interesting. Michael Saylor, not scared of the pullback. He acquired 11.9 thousand more Bitcoin for $786 million. The company now holds 226,331 Bitcoins. That is more than 1% of the total outstanding supply and the total max supply of Bitcoin ever. 210,000, 2.1 million Bitcoins. So 210,000 would have been 1%. Right? So very interesting. They are crossing that barrier. They now have the total holdings 226,000, worth just under 15 billion. And the company's Bitcoins purchased at an average price of 36K. So they're pretty safe down below there with that anchor point. We'll see how things play out. Bitcoin whales sold over 1 billion Bitcoin in past 2 weeks. You can see if we go zoom into this time frame here, there's a bit of selling over the past couple of weeks. Nothing really sticking out like the initial selling on the push up. If we go down the lower time frames, you can see on the 1 hour, as we pushed off of the moving average there was a little bit of selling, but we didn't go lower. We had more selling than we previously did on this area, and we didn't go lower, slightly higher low on the lower time frame. So nothing too scary yet. We're just in riskier territory than we were a week and a half ago. I mean, we're just going to have to be aware of it. Dogecoin, Solana, lead crypto majors plunge. So definitely, it sounds like the alt market took some hits and some blood ensued. So let's take a look. Let's see if any of our trades survived, how many of them maybe stopped out. I'm assuming a couple did. So there's Algo. Yep, you can see Algo just barely. They came all the way down. They slipped below where we wanted them to go. As they sometimes do. This is just how the market works on those pullbacks. You can't get them perfect every time. They popped us out and now they're sitting right on that support level. This is really where it would have been nice to take an entry, but because the market is unsteady and Bitcoin could force it lower, there's always the chance they come checking all the way below here. So we really need to see the market grind sideways and Bitcoin hold before we're certain they're not coming all the way back to this level, which is another 20 or so percent below. So we're not even going to bother with another attempt there. Cello, they got us there too. They went well below the trend line, well below our safety parameters, and bouncing off of the 50. They could easily go all the way to the 382 or the 236. Technically, when you come off the 1.618, it's better to stop at this 786. So they gave that up. It doesn't look great. And they could come all the way back down to this 236 before all is said and done, which is about 26% below. So these alts are definitely showing that they could go lower. They're hitting important points of support, but they're tapping through them. They went through the 50 on there. They went through this support level on here. That makes me a little nervous, at least for the alts. It doesn't make me want to jump into anything. Doge Doggy is in a point where you could try to take an entry, but it's way too risky. They're not close enough to this level yet. They could melt down even worse. Look at Engine. Oh, dear Lord. That is not what you want to see on the alt charts right now. So Engine did not hold that level, did not make a potential triple bottom there, has broken below that 0 fib for a lower low, which means this potential retracement leg is not done. Where's the next logical place where it starts to hit important levels? All the way down near that 618 would make sense based on these previous hits. So that may be where they're going. That's another 28-30%. So definitely don't want to try again for this one. That's when you just have to give it up. We tried it twice. They showed they're going lower, and possibly the floor is going out from under ERG near its all-time low there, going back since 2021. So definitely not looking good. INJ came all the way back down. Looks like they may finally give up some ground here. You can see they're now underneath the moving average. It was rejected. So a lot of these charts looking down. Now, here's where you have to be a little bit of a contrarian and think outside the box, because these charts could be looking down to get people to sell before the next leg up. Nothing is really completely broken down structurally. Yes, for all intents and purposes, our KDA trade broke down structurally. They didn't go. They didn't hold this support level we were hoping. They went below it and gave it up. So this one is dead to us. Until they show us maybe a double bottom that we could hide behind, until Bitcoin gets a little bit stronger, we can't count on this one anymore. This one is nasty. We just have to let it go. Komodo, they almost came down. This one, luckily, we got in the bottom of this triangle. I knew there was the chance they could flush it. We hid well below the moving average. They didn't stop us out yet, but there is a chance this one also gets stopped out and they come all the way down to this trend line. So I'm not too excited or thrilled, even though that one held. Look at KNC. Whew, good thing we didn't try that one, because that one came all the way back down there. This one isn't a spot you could try it now, but again, the greater market risk is too high to really get into much right now. Link survived, so that's a good sign. It did hold its important support levels, but it starts to look more like a head and shoulders, which would be pretty bad, because if this floor breaks, it's going to come all the way back down, if that is a head and shoulders, and come back down into this area where we can decide what to do again. Really would want them to hold the 236 if they give this up, at least in the larger picture. Loop ring, glad we didn't try this one again, because it came all the way down and popped a lower low. There was no safe place to hide on this one. The alts look messy. Bitcoin has been sideways and held fine, but the alts look gross. Metal on the 50 now. Technically, this one you could take a shot at, but the market is so gross and that candle is so thick, they could come back for that wick and easily stop you out. It is not in a safe space. Nothing looks good. Neo all the way back down to the 382, shutting that way down. So definitely not a double bottom. Possibly coming down to the 618 retracement there. I would need to see this set up and see what plays out next. But that one is not looking promising. Poly all the way back down to that moving average. They're holding that potential support level. That's really where it should hold, but they popped through it and it didn't hold strong. So there's a chance a lot of these are technically going to get wasted. Look at power. We waited to get in till later and it just decimated. Even the second entry is probably dead. If you had taken that second entry, you probably would have been dead as well. So power just not giving anybody a chance right now. And you can see they even gave up the wedge. So when the market starts getting that nasty, it is better, at least from a long standpoint, just to stay out and wait and see where we're going next. I think we had an SNX trade too. Yes, we did. And that one's dead. They just destroyed it, went right straight through. They did, this one actually bounced and held that important support level. So that's more promising than some of the others, but it's not good. So the market from an alt standpoint looks gross. Bitcoin just looks like it's stuck in this little triangle area moving sideways. So far, they haven't broken that point that was a bit of support when they went up and then resistance when they went under. It's kind of that midline of this consolidation sideways area. We're sitting right above it. And if we give that up, we could very quickly fall to the 2.618. We could see Bitcoin doing 5 to 10%. If that happens, most of the alts will bleed. Probably the rest of our trades will stop out. Right now, I'm not willing to take any new entries. If you guys have any charts you're looking at where you see something that looks too good to pass up, drop it in Discord. Let's talk about it. But right now, as I scan through the market, nothing looks very good. I mean, look at that, just important levels. This one, Anchor held the 236, but that was after a pretty massive pullback, 56%. These are starting to look more bearish. This is a pretty hefty bearish looking pullback off ARB. That's a full turnaround of that leg all the way back to almost the 786. So that's rough. You can see AVAX came all the way back to the 382. Pretty hefty percentages. Anybody who's bought in the last month or two is struggling right now in crypto. And they're upside down and they're worried if we go much lower, they will probably just give up and get out. So we could see some pretty big liquidation wicks. We could see some pretty big pressure wicks. Here, ILV, finally, are they going to come back down to our double bottom pullback? We waited through all that bounce and we might finally get that one. So if the market continues to bleed, if Bitcoin pushes lower, if the rest of our trades stop out, our next move is to see where the support checks in for Bitcoin, how low the alts are possibly going to go, and then to plan for the next leg. So we need Bitcoin to really start to show us the way a bit more. We see the alts telling us that they're not ready to blast off yet, but that could change. We have to be wary. Right now, Bitcoin is playing the sell in May and go away. That is a very institutional phrase from institutional equities markets, trading stocks. People tend to sell in May and check out for the summer breaks, all of that. They come back and things heat up again about August, September. And the market is just really sideways and down for much of the summer. That's a pretty common trend in equities. Will crypto follow that? So far, that's what we've done. We literally started May. If you had sold, you're doing fine right now. That would have been a great time to sell alts. We sold some alts at that time. We were taking profits, and then the market just didn't want to go up anymore and has pulled back and cooled off some coins to the tune of 50% in the last couple of months. It isn't bearish yet. It could turn bearish, and if it does, we'll be looking to find those entrance opportunities. If, however, we hold sideways and some trades start to set up and Bitcoin shows it's not going to go much lower, we'll take advantage of that and look for entries at that point as well. So be smart, protect that capital, take it slow, don't get emotional. You'll notice my stop outs didn't upset me. I expect that to happen when the market doesn't cooperate. I take it as useful information. I don't stick on it or dwell on it, and I move on. So we'll be looking for opportunities to show up in the days ahead. I will check back in with you all this weekend. But other than that, take care. Be safe. Reach out in Discord if you need anything. Until then, I will see you next time. Thanks, everyone.